All
This
right.
conference will now be recorded.
All right. So happy, like I said, happy Friday. Today is November 9th. And eh, that's the best I can say. It's not looking terrible out there. We definitely have some good things going on, but I wish I would see a little bit more. So apparently the market has taken a little bit of a hit, and Fridays are notorious, especially for these tech sell-offs. So we'll get into that in a second. But let's talk about the things that I have on my list so far. So ATVI, this is one of my favorite ones that I've seen this morning, and usually one of my favorite stocks I would see would be based off of some type of show of hand, but we don't really have that yet. And based off the orders, you know what? I'm not expecting a lot of bigger, burst prints coming in at any of the levels. But what I really do like is if we come back, and we talked about this in class, if you look right above that 54 level, you could see 54.30. We had some really nice selling coming in, and 54.10. So we're pulling up based off of that. 55 is a really nice ledge to have right above it. And overall, as we were coming back down to there, almost all of the bigger prints that we saw were selling. So I'm expecting a pullback to come from here. And I'm also expecting a real big range, considering the fact, well, first of all, we already have a really big range considering, what we've seen in the pre-market. But on average, trades about $2.18. And based off the volume that we have going on already, 474,000 shares, I'm expecting a lot more from what we're seeing coming into the pre-market. Hey, Rich, do you mind going over the end of the day move like T right at close yesterday? Not sure how. Yeah, I'll go over to T in a second. I'll go over that in a second after we're finished with that. But overall, I really like ATVI. I mean, you're not going to be able to trade a huge amount of shares of it, but it certainly is showing a whole bunch going on. So next thing looking at is Yelp, YELP. So once again, not really much of a show of hand whatsoever. We have one print that came in at 30, and we also have some really nice new selling that came in underneath that 30 level. So I'm going to be expecting it to pull up a little bit. I'm not, this is not towards the bottom of my list, but for new things, it's looking pretty decent. My biggest problem is that it has not shown whatsoever any type of show of hands. Davis, that's a great Traders Exchange question. I'm going to go over it for you, but for me to go over something within 2 minutes, that is not going to do any type of justice. So remember, Tuesdays, any questions that we ever have, I'll be happy to go over. So anyway, we got some decent buying that's coming back in. It looks like we're going to be riding a little bit of a pull up. We have some prints coming in at 30.50. So a little bit of a pullback before it comes back in. Most logical spot would be this 31 level for it to come back up to before we see anything coming back in. We need a little bit more selling than we've had. And like I said, I mean, there's just nothing that's that great. We do have a print that came in at 30 on the bid. So that pull up from the buying that we're seeing, it looks like we're going to be riding that pull up before we end up coming back in. And next is DBX. Now, this is another one that I'm not really ecstatic about. I mean, there's not anything that I'm really, that's too great, but we do have some decent prints that came in at that 27 level. Orders are very thin, and I know we're in the pre-market, so I'm going to be expecting it to pull back up after that. We do have some decent covering that came in or buying, whatever, well, in this case, probably buying because of the fact that, in the aftermarket, it pulled up a whole bunch. So it certainly looks like we're going to get another move towards that top side, but we do have to satisfy those prints that came in at that 27 to make their money before we'd be able to really get any type of move towards that upside. So I'm not like I said, I'm not really ecstatic about anything. I do really like ATVI because of the range that we're going to have into it, and I do like the selling that came in at 54.10. Remember what we talked about in classes. I mean, that's just a ballsy move. To take a position at 54.10 when 54 obviously is going to be, a pretty major level, especially after it took such a big hit. That new selling really, I really do like what I see going on there. Let's talk about a few of our everyday stocks. So SQ, hammered, getting crushed. There's so much selling that's in this. I'm so contradicted, and I've said this many times, but I really do like. I like the company. I know their earnings and the call didn't go so great, and blah 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 blah. But as you guys know, I really don't put much weight to that. But this thing, there's so much selling that's in here, so I'm gonna have to expect some type of pull up. It's gonna continue to be an exception, and we're gonna see this thing just get hammered, and I'm gonna go in on it short. and I'm not going to expect much of a pull up. Or when the market opens, we're going to see this thing pop up probably about $5 somewhere in there and start to go back on that uptrend before we end up coming in. So once the market opens and I see what the personality is, that's where I'm going to be taking my trade. We have some prints at 73.50. We have some prints at 73. Earlier, we had some prints at 75, from yesterday. So I'm gonna watch, and this thing. There's just so much selling, and the fact that I know it needs to come underneath 65, just it becomes an exception within my head just based off the fact that I know that it has to come under 65. So that's something that we really want to pay attention to. Apple's another one. We have so many sell prints at 200. This thing is coming underneath, and we're slowly coming onto that decline. So it's another one. I don't see anything there. There's nothing I'm making decisions on. This morning at 7:30, basically 206, we had some good sell prints that came in, and you have to remember, 3,400 shares right here in that burst that came in at 7:30. I mean, 7:30, I can't even trade until 8. So the difficulty of trade is certainly there. We certainly know there's a huge amount of selling that's underneath in that at that 200 level. So something to definitely keep an eye on. And then Bob is another one that, it's been kind of a sleeper, but this thing has been moving really great. And the volume has been average, but it's been really following the prints is best to its ability. So we have some sell prints at 145, 146, and 144.50. Another one that I'm going to be expanding. From what I see out there, it's looking like most of our everyday stocks are going to kind of get that push up before we end up coming in. And one other thing that I do want to talk about too is CGC. So CGC had some really good selling that's coming into the top of this 41 level. Another one where that's just a very ballsy position to be taking. But one thing that we do know is that we do need to see it come underneath that 41 level. So underneath that 41 level, I mean, it's imminent. We've been waiting for it. And then another one, TLRY, and the volume is probably going to be absolute garbage. But you know what? I'm still holding it. And until this thing gets to about 100 or underneath those prints at 110, it's just been such a beautiful trade. I mean, yesterday, once we got that pull up after about 10:30, and it's just started coming back in, just looks really, really good. And once again, like I said, that 110, the amount of selling that we have in there, 100 has to be the price target, just based off of the fact that that's such a huge psychological number. But overall, I do not expect it to hold there whatsoever. So just some backstories on what we have. So today I'm going to be able to trade full time. I know during class I kind of lose my stories, but at the end of the day, I still know where these things have to go based off of following that dominant market maker. So let's take a look at T. So you want to talk about aftermarket prints for a little bit. All right, so when we come in, we can see that there was about 7 million shares that came in. See these colors, this green that I see right there, I don't care about. Doesn't mean anything to me. All right, so at 31, we know somebody's looking to make a lot of money. And I know that, okay? We also know that this stock really needs to pull up higher than 31.15 based off of everything that we've seen. So when we see this much that comes out here, and really, at the end of the day, all those other prints, it doesn't mean anything compared to 4.6 million shares that came in at 31.04. So you have to be bullish above and bearish below. Overall, based off the story, we know it needs to pull up a little bit more. So I'm thinking that's a lot more of a longer term position that's coming into it. Send that question in for Traders Exchange. I'll spend 30 minutes on it and talking about aftermarket prints, because aftermarket prints are very important, but you also have to take them with a grain of salt, because there's not as much as you would expect. So it looks like, a ton of buying that was coming into it. We already know. We know what's happening. We know where the stock needs to go. That doesn't change any type of story that we've seen, besides the fact that 31.04 is telling us, once again, bullish above and bearish below. Now, anything else out there that I missed? Anything else out there? Nothing. Let's take a look. NBEV. No. All right. So problem with NBEV is the fact that it's TWLO. Actually, Jack, that's I have it circled with TLRY. We'll go over that in a second. See, the thing with NBEV is that I don't see anything here. Okay, you're more than likely you're not going to be able to get any type of shares to go short with it, depending on your situation. So I don't see anything there that really tells me anything. We're in more of a downtrend than anything. Our biggest prints and our biggest price action that has been coming in are towards that sell side. So I don't see much there that tells us that we're going to be able to come back up. Let's take a look. Let's see if we got anything at 350. Yeah, see, I mean, don't get me wrong, it might be able to move. I don't see anything that tells me it, so unfortunately that's not something that I'm going to be able to look at. What do you think AMD? Okay, we'll go over AMD in a second as well. Now, so TWLO, remember 88 number, it needs to come back below that 88 level. It's not showing anything right now, and volume is probably going to be really crappy. But before it comes underneath don't get me wrong, there's all selling that came into this huge volume bar. But as we talked about in class, this volume pattern tells us a whole lot. So we really need to come back underneath that 88 level before I would even think about going long. It doesn't mean that, the range that it comes into it, $4.19 on average, the day before it moved an astronomical amount. Yesterday moved $7.23 towards exactly where we know where it needed to go. So I'm expecting it to break underneath 90 and break past that 88. AMD. All right. So AMD is still the same situation. AMD is not a fast mover at all either. So this is another one. I mean, you could look on average, it's trading $1.67, but it has a lot to do with, the bigger moves that we've seen over the past few days. Yesterday it moved $1.11. Volume was underneath average. So overall, I haven't been watching it much. I mean, to be completely honest with you, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday during class, I didn't look at it once. I have no interest. And one of the reasons I don't have an interest is just because of the fact its personality is coming to be a lot slower. And because of that, there's just better stocks out there. For instance, if you were looking at AMD instead of SQ yesterday, you're crazy. There's just no reason to do it. But AMD, based off the prints that we had at that 20 that it ended up pulling up from, on getting that bigger move towards that 22 level, we know 19 had some really, really great selling into it in 1650. I'm overall, a lot of our everyday stocks, like I said, said the other day, are too far extended compared to where they really need to go. So what that tells me is that we're going to be looking and we're going to be expecting a big down day where a lot of these everyday stocks we start to see spiking and really get that volume to push back down. So that's what I'll be waiting for within here. AMD, am I going to be looking at it with the first thing in this morning? I promise you I will not. So if you ask me what the prints were, I'll have to look back because I'm not going to be paying much attention to it. There's just better stocks out there, okay, that demand our attention more than a stock like AMD does. But overall, it doesn't change. Nothing changes. Just like SQ went all the way up there, 65 is still under 65 is still my overall price target. It has to come underneath there. That market maker needs to make their money first. Just like AMD underneath that 19. I did not, the day that the 1650 prints came in there, did not see them. If they're there, then it has to come under 1650. All right, the story does not change. We just get more variables added into the story. Natasha's offended by this comment. All right, guys, so let's get ready for the morning. It's Friday. I'm really looking forward to it. On our class days, like I said, I don't really get to trade much at all. Yesterday, don't get me wrong, SQ did me real good for that first 30 minutes that came back in. Obviously, I didn't catch the entire amount, but I'm really looking forward to putting some money out there on some really high probability trades coming into this morning. And other than that, guys, I'll talk to everyone in the chat room and happy trading.